Imagine for a moment your mind is like an old library. The shelves are full of books you have never opened, dust-covered volumes, pages that may never have been read. You live life always taking the same books, always opening the same stories, repeating chapters you already know by color. But what if I told you that hidden in this library are there precious manuscripts with answers to questions you have not even dared to ask? Manuscripts that can change not only what you think, but how you feel, act, and see the world. This is the hidden power within you. This is the invitation of this audiobook, arousing mental skills that so far may have been dormant. You may think, but I already have my way to be. I've been over 30 or 40. You can't change anymore. This belief is more common than it seems. We grew up listening to phrases such as, crooked stick is not straightened, or each one is born with their gifts, and that's it. But modern science shows us that none of this is true. The brain is not a fixed machine condemned to wear. It is actually a living, plastic, moldable organism. This means that with each experience, with each new learning, you literally reconfigure the structure of your brain. What seemed an unchanging limit, in fact, is just a starting point. Have you noticed how a simple decision can change the course of your life? Think about the day you learned something that seemed impossible before. Driving, speaking in public, or even dealing with a loss. At first it seemed strange, even painful. But gradually, his brain fitted, created new paths, built networks that did not exist before. It's like a city that expands, first dirt streets, then avenues, then bridges connecting places that were once isolated. Science calls this neuroplasticity, but in practice it is proof that you are not imprisoned in a fixed version of yourself. You are always under construction. And this construction does not only happen in times of formal learning. It is present in every detail of your life. When you decide to exchange automatic criticism for a word of encouragement. When you take a deep breath instead of giving in to the impulse of anger. When you experience a new way of looking at a challenge. Each of these choices records new connections on your brain. Gradually, without realizing it, you will become a calmer, more creative, safer version of yourself. But here's the key. For this process to happen consciously, you need to wake up to the idea that your mind is like a garden. If you don't take care, weeds grow. Negative thoughts, painful memories, limiting beliefs, they all take up space, drain energy, and prevent flowers from developing. But when you decide to actively cultivate this garden by planting seeds of new habits, watering healthy ideas, removing what no longer serves, the landscape changes completely. The garden of your mind flourishes, and with it also flourishes your life. You may be thinking, but how do I start this process? Where do I start exploring this hidden power within me? The first step is simple but powerful. Consciousness. Consciousness is the switch that connects light in this mental library. It is the moment when you realize that you do not need to live on autopilot, repeating inherited family, society, or past experiences. You can observe yourself. You might ask yourself, why do I think this way? This thought helps me or limits me? This behavior is born of me, or is it just a repetition of what I saw in others? Just this act of observing already makes room for change. Remember, just being here now, devoting your time to listening and reflecting, you are already among the few who have chosen to get out of the automatic cycle. While most rush from task to task, never stopping to ask themselves who I really am, you have decided to invest in the most precious resource that exists, your mind. And that already puts you in a different group, in a privileged position. Few people have this silent courage to look inside. I want you to imagine something simple but symbolic now. Imagine a golden key in your hand. This key does not open external doors, does not open common coffers or locks. It opens doors within your mind. Each door represents a skill that you have not yet accessed. Calm in the midst of chaos, creativity in times of blocking, confidence in challenging situations. This key has always been with you, but it only works when you decide to use it. What we are doing here is precisely to learn how to rotate this key, how to cross these doors and explore the still hidden rooms of your own conscience. You don't need an extraordinary talent for it. It doesn't have to be a genius or a bright. It only needs something anyone can cultivate: curiosity and patience. Curiosity to venture into unknown internal territories. Patience to understand that this journey does not happen in a single leap, but in steps, in choices, in small, daily victories. Think of someone learning to play violin. At first the sound is dissonant, even unpleasant. But with practice, with persistence, the same person can create melodies that thrill. Your mind works the same way. It may seem chaotic at first, but the more you train, the more harmony you create. And here is a thought for you to carry with you. Every time you devote time to this process of self-knowledge, you are writing new pages in the history of your life. Pages that are not dictated by chance or external expectations, but by your conscious choice. Pages where you assume the role of author of your own transformation. This is more than learning a technique or following a step-by-step. It is awakening to the truth that power has always been in you, waiting for the moment to be released. This is just the beginning of our walk. In the next blocks, let's dive into myths that imprison the mind, the brain's secret languages, how the environment shapes your beliefs, and how you can turn it into fuel to live in a fuller and more conscious way. But for now, I want you to keep a certainty. Your mind is unlimited, and each time you choose to explore it, you find that the impossible is just a word that loses meaning. For a long time, we have been taught to believe that there are fixed limits to what we can or do. You may have already repeated or heard phrases like, "I have never been good with numbers," "Creativity is not my forte," "I'm too old to learn something new." These phrases seem innocent but actually act as invisible currents that imprison your mind. They create a sense of closed destination, as if life were an already paved road and without possible deviations. But what if I told you that these limits are illusions? They are not solid walls, but shadows projected by beliefs you have accepted without question. Each time you say to yourself that you can't, that you were not born with a particular gift, you strengthen a narrative that has no real basis. Human science and experience show that the mind is expansive and malleable. The question has never been, can I or can't? Am I willing to train my mind to go beyond what I already know? Think of how many people have already reinventing themselves at age that for many would be considered a point without return. Women who, after 40, learned new languages, changed their profession, rediscovered themselves as artists, entrepreneurs, or even athletes. It is not that they were born different, they dared to break with the myth of the boundaries. The brain, contrary to what was believed for centuries, is not a machine that rusts after a certain age. It is more like a river. The more it flows, the more paths it opens. And here's the detail that few people realize. When you repeat a limiting phrase such as, "I have no discipline," your brain interprets it as an order. It creates paths that reinforce this pattern. But when you start to question and replace these sentences, you make room for new connections. Instead of "I'm not creative," you can say, "My creativity is awakening more and more." It may seem simple, but this act of reformulating is like planting seeds on fertile soil. Now, I know it may seem challenging. After all, these limiting thoughts did not come yesterday. Many of them were placed in you still in childhood, by teachers, family, or even schoolmates. Maybe someone said that you were distracted, slow, or that you had no talent for a certain thing. Without realizing it, you carried these labels and turned them into absolute truths. But see, if these ideas have been learned, they can also be unlearned. I want to share with you an image. Imagine that you are in front of an old mirror which has been blurred for dust and stains for years. You look yourself and only see distorted shadows. But as it begins to clean the glass, the actual image appears. This is how it happens when you start to question the mental myths that limit your life. You are not becoming different. You are just revealing who has been there all the time. And here is a crucial point: the way you deal with the error. We have been educated to believe that failing is a sign of disability. But in fact, error is the most powerful learning tool that exists. Each time you make a mistake, you are actually building new roots within the brain. Error is not the end of the way, but the brick with which the road is paved. When you allow yourself to fail and learn, you turn the error into an ally. Try doing a simple exercise. Take a sheet of paper and write a sentence you often repeat about yourself. It can be, "I get easily distracted," or "I don't have the courage to change." Then ask yourself, when I first heard this, was it someone who said, I myself concluded? Is this a fact or just an interpretation? In doing this exercise, you will realize that many of your limitations were not born of you, but were inherited from the environment. And what is inherited can be questioned, transformed, and left behind. Another essential point is to expose yourself to the new. The mind expands when you experience the unknown. It doesn't have to be something grand. You can start with little things. Learning a different recipe, explore a hobby you never tried, read about a subject outside your area of interest. Every news is like a new open path on your mind map. The more you explore, the more your brain understands that growing is natural. And here is what may be the most inspiring part. You are not defined by your past. What you were yesterday doesn't have to dictate who you will be tomorrow. This may seem obvious, but how many times have you gotten on saying, "I've always been like this"? The truth is that this phrase only reinforces an old script. You have the power to write new chapters, to create a broader narrative, richer and more aligned with what you want to live. Now think to me. Just by being here, listening to these words, you are already part of a very small group of people who allow themselves to question their own limits. The vast majority remain stuck in automatic routines, repeating old phrases without ever stopping to reflect. You don't. You are choosing to look inside, and this already puts you in a different position from most. Before we go to the next chapter, I want to open a special space. If this message made sense to you so far, I want to invite you to continue with me on this journey. Click to subscribe to the channel. We are building something that goes far beyond a video. We are creating a community. And reaching the first big milestone of 1,000 subscribers is more than a number. It is proof that each person who enters strengthens this project and gives voice to independent creators like me. And more than that, I want you not just a spectator. I want you to share your own experiences. Leave in the comments how you have realized changes in your life in recent times. It can be something small, a new thought, a new attitude, or even a striking story. When you divide this, not only reinforces your own way, but also inspire other people who are here walking by your side. This exchange is what transforms simple words into real transformation. If you have already traveled to a country where you didn't speak the local language, you must have felt that mixture of frustration and impotence. You try to communicate with gestures, looks, perhaps even with makeshift drawings, but deep down you know that half of the message is lost along the way. Now imagine that this same phenomenon happens within you every day. There is a secret language that your brain speaks, a language that does not only use words but also images, emotions, and sensations. The problem is that we almost never learn to listen to it consciously. This internal language is more powerful than we imagine. Every thought you repeat, every image you project, every emotion you feel functions as a direct instruction to your brain. He does not judge whether the message is good or bad, useful or harmful. It just reinforces what you repeat. If you spend years silently repeating, "I am not capable of," it turns into a command your brain faithfully obeying, like a computer programmed to follow lines of code. And here comes a surprising detail. The brain doesn't make so much difference between what you imagine and what really happens. Recent research shows that when you view an action with intensity, the same brain areas that would be activated during the actual action are also active. That is, if you clearly imagine that you are going on a stage and talking safely, your brain trains this experience almost as if it were real. It is like rehearsing behind the scenes before entering the scene. You may remember striking moments when a word has deeply moved you. It may have been a compliment that lit confidence in a difficult day, or an unexpected criticism that echoed inside you for weeks. This is because words are not neutral. They trigger chemical reactions in the brain, activate memories, and often create marks that mold how you see yourself. Therefore, learning to consciously choose the words you direct yourself is how to learn how to program your own operating system. But it's not just with words that this language works. The main dialect of the brain is emotion. Notice, you may not remember exactly what you had lunch 17 days ago, but surely remembers the day you received an impactful news, or from that moment when someone special holds your hand. This is because emotion acts as a fluorescent marker. Everything that comes with emotion gains priority in your memory system. This is a valuable key. If you want to learn something new or turn a habit, you need to add emotion to the process. It's no use repeating a phrase like, "I can change mechanically without involvement." But if you repeat it by feeling enthusiasm, hope, confidence, your brain records as a significant experience. It's like recording a song that you can't forget. Another powerful way to access this language is through the internal images. Our brain is highly visual. If you close your eyes now and imagine a lemon being cut, it will probably begin to salivate. There is no lemon in front of you, but your mind responded as if it were. This shows how mental images have the power to influence not only thoughts, but also physical reactions. The question is, what images are you fed within you? Now there is also a silent aspect in this language. Silence is more than absence of sound. It is a fertile space for reorganizing the mind. When you close your eyes, take a deep breath and silence the external noise. Your brain enters the slower states of wave, such as alpha and tissue, which facilitate both learning and creativity. It is in this silence that you start listening to internal voices that were once stifled by the rush of everyday life. I want you to reflect on this. How many times have you repeated inherited phrases without realizing it? Things like, "I'm not good in mathematics," "Nobody in my family has achieved," or "I'm too eager to change." Ask yourself, who are these phrases from? Are they really yours or just echoes of external voices? When you identify that much of what you think was not born of you, but you have been learned, you get the freedom to clean the internal dictionary and start writing a new one. A good exercise is consciously choosing 3 words that you want to define your life from now on. It can be courage, balance, abundance, or any other that makes sense to you. Write these words in a visible place. Repeat them upon waking up and before bed. And more importantly, associate positive emotions with them. Imagine living situations in which these words become real. Gradually, you will be teaching your brain the new language you want to speak. Remember, the brain does not only understand logic, it mainly understands repetition and intensity. So whenever you repeat words aligned with what you want to live, accompanied by true emotion and clear mental images, you will be shaping your future. You may not notice immediately, but with each repetition, new neuronal paths are paved, such as trails that become increasingly solid roads. And here I want to highlight something essential. The simple fact that you are here, listening to this content, already differentiates it from almost 90% from people. Most live without ever questioning their own internal dialogue. You don't. You have decided to stop, reflect, and it already shows a silent force that few have. In the next block, let's talk about how the environment you live in, family, friends, culture, directly influences your beliefs and perceptions. And more importantly, how you can learn not only to be the product of the environment, but conscious author of your own history. Look around for a moment. Think about the people you live with daily, the places you go to, the values and beliefs you hear since childhood. You may never have stopped to notice, but much of what you consider your way of being is actually a reflection of the environment that shaped your worldview. It is as if the environment were a kind of invisible sculptor, which has gradually sculpted its perception of what is possible, which is normal, and even what is acceptable. This power of the environment begins early. From an early age, you have learned by observing how the adults around them dealt with money, how they reacted in the face of challenges, which they said about success, about love, about failure. These examples set themselves as invisible molds. If you have grown in an environment where it has always been repeated that money is dirty or woman needs to be content with less, it is likely that even unintentionally absorbed these ideas. They are recorded as watermarks in their consciousness, almost imperceptible but always present. Now, this does not mean that you are doomed to live under these brands forever. It only means that you need to learn to see them. Because when you don't see them, you act as an actor who plays a script written by someone else. But when you become aware, It is as if you take the pen back to write your own story. A curious example happened in the last century when psychologists observed tribes that had never had contact with Western culture. They found that many of the skills we judged natural, such as the form of storytelling, eating customs, or even gestures of affection, were learned in conviviality, not something innate. This shows that the environment not only influences, but literally program behaviors and beliefs. And that power is not limited to childhood. The environment continues to silently influencing its adult life. Maybe you have a friend who is always complaining, and realize that after spending a lot of time with her, you start to feel the weight of dissatisfaction yourself. Or maybe work in a place where culture is constantly competitive, and this makes it live on alert, even out of work. The environment is like a perfume. Even unintentionally, you carry the smell impregnated on the skin. But here comes the good news. Just as the environment can imprison, it can also release. When you start consciously choosing the spaces you go to, the people you connect with, the content you consume, you create microenvironment that act as greenhouses for your growth. No need to change city or cut extreme ties. Small changes already make a difference. Set up a reading corner at home, participate in a group that shares similar goals, book moments of silence away from the phone. Each microenvironment you create is like a seed planted on fertile soil. I want you to imagine a simple scene for a moment. A tree growing in the middle of a concrete sidewalk. Their roots find barriers, but continue to insist until cracking the floor. Now imagine this same tree in an open field with space, sun, and abundant water. Growth happens with much more fluidity. You are this tree. Your environment can hinder or facilitate your flowering, but unlike the tree, you can choose where to plant your roots. Another important aspect is invisible contagion. Studies show that emotions and behaviors spread as social viruses. If someone close to you lives in constant pessimism, it is likely to contaminate your energy. Similarly, if you surround yourself with enthusiastic, creative, and positive people, your own mind begins to vibrate at this frequency. It is therefore essential to consciously choose which influences you will allow you to enter your intimate circle. But I know it may seem difficult. We cannot always choose the family, the work, or the immediate context. This is where your autonomy comes in. Even within limiting environments, you can create small islands of freedom. It can be a playlist that raises your mood, a notebook where you record dreams and goals, or even reserve 10 minutes a day to reconnect yourself. These small actions are like open windows in a dark room. They allow the light to enter, even when everything around it seems closed. And here I want to emphasize something. The simple fact that you are listening to this content already shows that you are creating a new internal environment. You have chosen to connect with words that raise, awaken, question. While most are drowned in distractions and noise, you have decided to devote this time to something that nourishes your mind. And that, by itself, already puts it in a special group, unlike the vast majority that prefers to live in the automatic. A practical exercise that can help you are writing a list of phrases you often heard in your home environment. They can be family phrases, colleagues, teachers. Then, next to each sentence, write, "Does this belief fit me?" If the answer is no, you can choose to replace it with something more aligned with your current life. It's like changing the musical background of a movie. The scene is the same, but perception changes completely. It is also useful to look for inspiring models. People who live closer to what you want for you. Not to copy them, but to remember that there are alternatives. When you watch someone who has overcome barriers similar to yours, your brain understands, if it is possible for her, it can be for me too. This is the power of the so-called expansers. They don't dictate who you should be, but they open doors that you might not even know that existed. Deep down, the great battle with the environment is not against people or places itself, but against the idea that you have no choice. You have, always will. It may not control everything around it, but you can choose how to answer, where to invest your attention, and which seeds plant within you. In the next block, let's explore how your body, with your automatic memories and habits, often acts as if you were the true owner of your life. And more importantly, how you can resume command back to your own hands. Have you noticed how often your body seems to react before you think? It is as if there is an invisible autopilot, guiding its actions and emotions without asking permission. You say to yourself, "This time I'll be calm." But when the situation happens, your breathing accelerates, your muscles contract, and you explode in a swearing that you didn't want to have. It seems contradictory, but it is proof that the body keeps memories as strong as the mind. The body works like a living file. Each repeated emotion, every pattern of behavior, each habit is inscribed in it as a brand. If you spend years reacting with anxiety in certain situations, the body learns to reproduce this anxiety even without a real reason. It's like a song that plays alone, without you pressing the play button. The brain sends signs, but the body has already learned the color choreography and executes without question. This phenomenon has a simple explanation. Each emotion triggers a waterfall of chemical reactions. If these emotions are repeated, the body gets used to living in these states. Anger, fear, worry, stress, they all saw a kind of silent addiction. The body begins to ask for more of the same chemistry, as if you ask for repeated doses of coffee to stay awake. That's why many people say, "I wanted to change, but it looks like something pulls me back." This something is the memorized body. But here's good news. Just as the body can learn habits that limit, it can also learn new standards that liberate. The secret is to create small conscious interruptions in automatic flow. Think of a wheel spinning at high speed. If you put a small stone on the way, the wheel slows down. Similarly, when you create conscious breaks, it interrupts the cycle and makes room for a new answer. A simple practice is to use breathing as a key. When you feel that the body is about to repeat a pattern, such as anxiety, impatience, or automatic sadness, stop and breathe deeply. Inhale counting up to 4, hold by 2, and slowly exhale counting up to 6. This sequence looks banal but sends a clear message to the body. Now I'm in charge. Gradually, you begin to train not only the mind but also the body for new balances. Another powerful resource is physical anchor. You can choose a simple gesture, such as touching your index and thumb fingers, and associating it with a desired emotional state. Whenever you are quiet and confident, make this gesture recording the feeling. Over time, your body learns to associate the gesture with the emotional state, and when you need to recover this confidence in times of tension, it will just be repeated the gesture to reactivate physical memory. But it is not just isolated techniques. It is about recovering authority over your own body. When you begin to realize that many of your reactions are not you for real, but only incorporated habits, it gains the freedom to choose from. It's like taking the steering wheel from the hands of a distracted driver and resume the direction of the car. Think about how many times have you said, "I don't know why I do it, it just happens." This phrase is a clear sign that the body was driving. But when you observe and interrupt this pattern, you find that you can act differently. You can calmly respond where before there was an explosion. You can focus where there was before dispersion. You can act with courage where there was before fear. And here is an inspiring point. Just by listening to this content, you are already training your body to open to new states. Even if you don't realize, every more conscious breath, every reflection that arouses a different emotion, is already creating new brands in you. While most continue to react in automatic, you consciously choose to plant new internal movements. It is also important to understand that body and mind are not enemies, but allies who need to learn to dance together. When the body insists on old patterns, it is not because it wants to disturb, but because it has learned to survive like this. It is up to you to show him that there are better, lighter, and more aligned forms with the life she wants to live. A good metaphor is to think of the body as a musical instrument. Imagine a piano that spent years challenged. You may play, but the notes do not sound as they should. The tuning does not happen at once, but gradually adjusting rope by rope until the sound is harmonious again. Similarly, when you practice body awareness, breathing, and small changes, you are again tuning the instrument of your life. And if there is something powerful that you can take from here is this. No matter how many years your body has been repeating a pattern, it can learn something new. Just as muscles are strengthened with exercises, emotions and behaviors also reconfigure themselves with practice. The transformation is not to force a radical change overnight, but to accumulate small daily victories that, over time, become a new reality. In the next block, let's talk about time not as an enemy that runs against you, but as a powerful ally when you learn to use it for your transformation. Time is often seen as the great enemy. How many times have you thought, "I don't have enough time," "It's too late," or "I lost my chance"? This vision transforms time into a kind of invisible executioner, which is always running ahead, always pressing, always charging. But what if time, instead of enemy, could be an ally? What if he were, in fact, one of the most powerful resources for his transformation process? The first change required is of perception. Time is not just something that passes, it is a space that can be filled. When you live distractedly, this space fades like sand dripping between your fingers. But when you live with presence, time expands. Have you noticed how minutes look like hours when you are in an intense situation? And how do you look like minutes when you are involved in something you love? This shows that time is elastic. He is not only chronological, but also psychological. And here is a little spoken secret. Learning to be present is the most powerful way to multiply time. When you put attention full in an activity, it is not only better, but it records more deeply in memory, learn faster, and enjoy the process more. It's like cooking a special meal. If you are hurrying, it barely tastes. But if it is present, every detail, the aroma, the texture, the taste, becomes a complete experience. This presence need not be something distant or complicated. You can start right now. Next time you drink water, notice the weight of the glass in hand, the temperature of the liquid, the sensation down through the throat. These are simple moments that, when lived carefully, turn time into full experience. Gradually, you will realize that your life is not just happening, it is being lived. But it is not just about expanding time by presence. There is also the art of using time strategically. The brain learns better in short and spaced blocks than in long periods of continuous effort. It is like the sleep cycle, phases of activity and rest. When you alternate focus and pause, you create a pace that favors both productivity and well-being. Try applying this on your day. Instead of spending 3 hours trying to learn something at once, divide into 30 or 40-minute sessions, interspersed with small intervals. Your brain will better consolidate the information, and you will come to the end of the process with less wear and tear. This principle is called spaced practice and is used by those who want consistent results in any area, from language learning to physical training. Another fundamental aspect is to understand the power of repetition over time. Great changes rarely happen in immediate heals. They are the result of small actions accumulated day after day. Think of someone who decides to walk 20 minutes every day. At first it looks little, but after weeks and months the results are visible not only in the body but also in the mind. Time, when combined with consistency, becomes a multiplier. And here is a powerful reflection. It is not the amount of time you have, but the quality you use it. Two people can live the same number of years, but while one spends most in autopilot, the other lives intensely, with presence and intention. This is why some experiments mark forever, while others seem to evaporate. What makes the difference is consciousness. You can also learn to use time as a healing feature. Difficult emotions, when crossed with presence and patience, lose strength. What seemed unbearable today can become just a distant memory tomorrow. Time softens edges, hesides wounds, and gives us a chance to look back with new eyes. But this only happens when you allow yourself to live the process instead of running away from it. A simple exercise that can change your relationship with time is as follows. Choose a moment of your day to stop for 2 minutes and just breathe. Close your eyes, inspire slowly, feel the air entering and leaving. During these 2 minutes, nothing more matters. It sounds little, but these small intervals act as anchors, remembering that time is always available when you decide to reconnect with it. And remember, just for being here now, listening and reflecting, you're already using time differently from most. As long as they run without direction, you choose to invest precious minutes to cultivate clarity, consciousness, and transformation. This puts it among a minority that not only lives but learns to live with intention. In the next block, let's explore something fascinating: the three brains that live within you, the reptilian, the licit, and the neocortex, and how they need to learn to work in harmony so that you reach balance and growth. When we speak of mind, most people imagine only a command center inside their heads, as if everything came from a single place. But the truth is that inside you live different brains, each with different functions, languages, and interests. Understanding this dynamic is like discovering that instead of a single pilot, there is an entire crew, sometimes cooperating, sometimes arguing, always trying to guide your life. The first of these is called the reptilian brain. He is the oldest in evolutionary terms, responsible for immediate survival, breathing, heartbeat, escape reflexes, or defense. It's like a security guard, always on alert, ready to push the red button on any danger signal. If you have already felt your heart to shoot as you cross a street and almost be surprised by a car, know it was this brain that went into action. He does not reason, does not plan, just reacts. But when the reptilian commands in excess, his life becomes a constant survival field. You end up repeating the same routines, avoiding risks, always keeping inside the comfort zone. It seems safe, but in practice it is a silent prison. Living only to survive is not really living. The second brain is the limbic system, known as the center of emotions and effective memory. This is where you store experiences linked to pleasure, pain, joy, and sadness. Imagine listening to a song and suddenly feel tears running down without understanding why. This is the limbic activating hidden memories, bringing up the kept feelings. It seeks connection, welcome, and pleasure, but also avoids everything that can hurt. It is thanks to the limbic that you feel passion, compassion, enthusiasm. But it is also he who can lead her to eat an entire ice cream jar after a difficult day, or giving up a plan because she wasn't in the mood. When the limbic dominates, his decisions are at the mercy of the emotions of the moment. Finally, we have the neocortex, the latest in the line of evolution, responsible for logical reasoning, imagination, language, and the ability to plan. It is like a bright architect that draws bridges, buildings, and whole cities. This is where their most creative ideas, their strategies, and projects for the future are born. However, as incredible as the neocortex is, he alone does not realize everything. He can plan a lifetime, but if the limbic is not motivated and the reptilian is not safe, these plans are only on paper. That's why you often know exactly what you should do: exercise, start a project, take better care of food, but you find yourself repeating old patterns. It is not a lack of intelligence, it is a lack of integration between the three brains. To understand this internal struggle, imagine the following scene. You decide to run a marathon. The neocortex thinks, "It's going to be amazing, I'll train, I'll win something new." The limbic replies, "I prefer to stay home seeing a series because it brings me immediate pleasure." Meanwhile, reptilian shouts, "Running can be dangerous, better not risk." Do you notice? It is as if three voices are vying for the steering wheel at the same time. This battle happens daily, in large and small decisions. And the secret is not in silencing one of these voices, but in learning to listen and integrate them. Reptilian needs to feel that you are safe, the limbic needs to be inspired by positive emotion, and the neocortex needs to go direction. A real case that illustrates this dynamic is that of a worker who suffered a serious accident in the 19th century and survived, but lost part of the neocortex. His body continued to work, but his personality changed dramatically. He became impulsive, unable to plan or maintain stable relationships. This story marked science because it has clearly showed that each part of the brain fulfills an essential role. So how to promote integration? First, listen to your reptilian. When you are afraid, do not treat you as an enemy. Ask, "What are you trying to protect me?" Often, he is just exaggerating the importance of a risk. Thank you for your warning, but consciously decide whether the threat is real or just imagined. Second, negotiate with your limbic. Instead of fighting emotions, learn to observe them. If you feel anxiety, ask yourself, "What story is my mind telling me now?" Just by naming emotion, you activate the neocortex and decrease the drag power of the limbic. Third, feed the neocortex. Write your plans, visualize your goals, create strategies. But don't stop there. Turn the plan into something emotionally engaging so that the limbic motivates itself, and take small and safe steps so that the reptilian accepts to advance. A practical exercise is to imagine an internal meeting between the three brains. Visualize them sitting at the table, reptilian asking for safety, the limbic asking for pleasure and connection, and the neocortex proposing growth and innovation. Your task is to create a plan that contemplates the three. For example, if you decide to adopt a routine of exercise, the reptilian gains health, the limbic feels well-being through released endorphins, and the neocortex celebrates each goal achieved. When you create this balance, your life is no longer a field of internal battles and becomes a well-tuned orchestra. Reptilian ensures that you are alive, the licit ensures that you feel, and the neocortex ensures that you create. Together, they can bring their existence at a much higher level. And here is something you need to hear. Just by listening to this content so far, you are already part of a very small group of people. Most live without ever reflecting on how their own mind works. But you don't. You are choosing to invest time and energy to get to know each other better. This puts it among the few that allow themselves to be aware consciously, and this is already a form of liberation. In the next block, let's dive into one of the greatest features of the modern brain: attention. Finding out how it is kidnapped around the world and how you can recover it will be like taking back the reins of your life. We live in the age of distraction. Never in the history of humanity so many voices competed for their attention at the same time. Notifications, social networks, messages, emails, televisions, ads, responsibilities, everything trying to capture this precious feature. And you may never have stopped to think about it, but your attention is actually the most valuable currency of your life. Where you put attention, you put energy. And where you put energy, it grows. Think of attention like a flashlight in the darkness. If you illuminate a flower, it is the flower you see in detail. A stone is illuminated, it is the stone that dominates its vision. The question is, where is your flashlight pointed out at this very moment of your life? Many people live with the flashlight pointed to problems, worries, memories of failures, or even empty distractions that add nothing. The result is inevitable. The brain strengthens what is repeated. Neuroscience explains this very clearly. Neurons that shoot together connect together. This means that each time you drive attention to something, you strengthen the neural network associated with that. If you spend hours eating worries, you are building within your mind true anxiety corridors. If you spend hours focused on learning, reflecting and creating, builds trails of clarity, resilience, and growth. Your life is shaped by the way you train your attention. A famous experiment illustrates this well. Imagine a group of people watching a video in which two teams pass a ball. The instructor asks to tell how many passes the white t-shirt team performs. While everyone is focused on telling, a gorilla-dressed man crosses the scene by hitting his chest. The amazing thing is that almost half of the people do not notice the gorilla. They were so focused on the task of counting passes that they literally got blind to something obvious. Now stop and reflect. How many invisible gorillas are going through your life right now, but you don't see why your attention is too busy with distractions? This is one of the great modern traps. Your attention kidnapped by things that don't matter, while precious opportunities go unnoticed. Another powerful point is that attention not only observes reality, but also creates it. If you spend the day telling yourself that you are tired, overwhelmed, or unable, your attention reinforces these experiences. But if you decide to consciously feed thoughts of possibility, calm, and courage, the brain begins to build this version of you. It's like watering a garden. Where water falls, the plants bloom. Where it does not fall, they dry. And maybe you think, but how to recover my attention if the whole world seems to be done to steal it? The answer is in small acts of conscious rebellion. Turn off the phone for a few minutes. Choose a book instead of an infinite feed. Make a meal looking at the plate instead of the screen. Each of these gestures is a way of saying, "My attention is mine, and I decide where to put it." A practical and simple exercise is that of observation. Take a common object, a candle, a mug, even a tree sheet, and dedicate a minute just to watch it. Note the colors, the details, the shapes, without letting the mind escape. At first, it may seem almost impossible. The mind tries to escape. But with practice, this exercise strengthens its focus as if it were a muscle. Another powerful exercise is that of full attention in action. Transform common tasks on presence training. Wash the dishes, walk to the market, bathe. Take your attention to every detail of what you are doing instead of thinking about 1,000 things at the same time. It sounds too simple, but it is in this kind of practice that the mind calms down and life gains clarity. And here is an important revelation. Your happiness is directly linked to the quality of your attention. Studies show that people feel happier when they are aware of what they are doing, regardless of the activity. That is, you can feel more pleased washing dishes with full attention than dreaming of the vacation as you work. It is not the activity itself that defines your happiness, but where your attention is. This is a powerful message to you who are here now, listening and reflecting. Just dedicating minutes of your life to investing in self. Knowledge already puts it in a rare group. While most remain lost in the avalanche of distractions, you chose to stop, listen, and reflect. This means that you are already among the 10% that not only consume information, but use attention to create real transformation. However, it is not about isolating itself from the world. The goal is not to live without technology, without stimuli, or without contact. True power is to learn to be the owner of your attention rather than being led by it. This is freedom. This is maturity. It is the difference between living and living choosing. Now imagine what could happen if you trained your attention to focus daily who you want to become. If every day reserved minutes to visualize the life they want, to feel the emotions of the person who is becoming, to feed thoughts of courage, creativity, and confidence. Your attention would become the most powerful tool to shape your identity. In the next block, we will explore a practice that is often surrounded by mystery, but is actually simple and accessible to anyone. Meditation. You will find that it is not about emptying your mind, but learning to observe and direct it. When you hear the word meditation, you may create images of monks in distant temples, dressed in tunics, sitting for silent hours, repeating old mantras. This image is beautiful but also intimidating. It makes it seem that meditating is reserved for illuminated sages, inaccessible for ordinary people who have routine, children, work, accounts, and responsibilities. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Meditation is a simple, practical, and deeply human tool. It is not about erasing thoughts or entering a mystical state. The true purpose of meditation is to train your mind to be present. It's like learning to drive a car. At first it looks difficult. You get lost between the steering wheel, the gearbox, and the pedals, but with the practice it becomes natural. To meditate is to train the ability to observe what happens inside you without getting lost in it. Modern science confirmed what ancient traditions already knew. Research shows that regular meditation practice physically alters the brain. It strengthens the hippocampus, a region linked to memory and learning, reduces the size of the amygdala, which is the center of fear and anxiety, and increases the activity of the prefrontal cortex, responsible for mental clarity and conscious decision-making. In other words, meditating is not a matter of belief, it is a matter of neuroplasticity. And maybe you think, but I don't have time for that. Here is the good news. You don't need hours a day. Only 5 to 10 minutes are enough to start feeling the effects. A short and consistent practice is better than long occasional sessions. Meditation acts as a gym for the mind. Results come with repetition, not with isolated effort. Let's simplify. There are many ways to meditate, but the most affordable is breathing meditation. The process is straightforward. Find a quiet place, feel comfortably, close your eyes, and take your attention to breathing. Feel the air entering, the air leaving. Your mind will be distracted inevitably. You will think of tasks, memories, worries. And when that happens, don't blame yourself. Just recognize, I'm distracted, and go back to breathing. This return is the real training. Each time you come back, it strengthens your muscle of attention. A useful metaphor is to think of your mind like a lake. When the wind blows, the water stirs, creating waves that prevent it from seeing the bottom. Meditation does not eliminate the wind, but teaches you to wait until the lake will calm again. And when the water is calm, you can see what was once hidden. Clarity, intuition, deep calm. Another simple practice is body scanning. With your eyes closed, mentally go through every body, from the feet to the head, just realizing the sensations. This helps reconnect you with your body and reduce accumulated tensions. There is also meditation walking, where each step becomes an object of attention as if it were a silent dance with life. And remember, there is no right or wrong meditation. Each session, even those in which your mind looks like a whirlwind, has value. The act of sitting and observing is already a revolutionary act in a world that all the time wants to kidnap your attention. The benefits are not restricted to the moment of practice. They expand to everyday life. Over time, you realize that it reacts less impulsively, which can stay calm in challenging situations, that little things are more intensely appreciated. It is as if life diminished the speed, allowing you to truly enjoy it. Imagine, for example, a conflict situation at work or at home. Rather, your immediate reaction could be lifting your voice, annoying, or closing. After a few weeks of meditation, you notice the impulse, take a deep breath, and choose to respond calmly. This difference changes not only your experience, but also the energy of the relationship. And here is something special for you that has come to this point of the script. Just by devoting a few minutes of your time to listen and reflect on it, you are already showing rare discipline. Most people seek constant distraction, but you have chosen to invest in their own growth. This means that it is among the minority that really understands the value of cultivating the mind. If so far everything has made sense, know that in the next blocks we will explore something even deeper. How you can rewrite your own story. Yes, that voice that tells your life, which remembers errors and reinforces boundaries, can be trained to tell a new version. A version that inspires, strengthens, and that opens ways. Within each person there is an invisible narrator. It does not appear in photos, does not give interviews, but is always present, telling a story about who you are, where it came from, and where you can go. This internal narrator builds chapters from memories, lines you heard, comparisons, successes and failures. The problem is that it often insists on narrating life from the most painful or limiting parts. It is as if it always recounts the same dark chapters, until you begin to believe that this is the only possible version of your life. But there is good news. This narrative is not recorded in stone. Human memory does not function as a computer file that holds events unchangingly. On the contrary, each time you remember something, your mind reopens that file, changes details, and stores it again. This means that the past can be reinterpreted and recounted. You can't change the facts, but you can change the meaning you give them. And that changes everything. Think of two people who went through the same challenging situation, such as losing a job. One of them tells herself to herself, "I failed, I can't." The other chooses to narrate, "That was the chance I needed to look for something more aligned with whom I am." The fact is the same, but the story is completely different. One narrative holds, the other releases. From an early age, many stories you carry were not even written by you. Parents, teachers, colleagues, and even the surrounding culture have helped shape phrases that repeat to this day. You don't get the way for it. No one comes far away. It's better not to dream loudly so as not to disappoint. These narratives are like inherited scripts, transmitted without question. But here is the essential point. They do not describe reality, only reflect interpretations. Rewriting history itself begins with consciousness. Ask yourself, which phrases do you repeat to yourself that look definitive? Maybe something like, "I was never good to focus," or "I can't maintain healthy relationships." When these phrases arise, question them. Where did you come from? Were they the result of a single episode? Were they words of someone who also carried their own limitations? Often the weight we give to these narratives comes from the simple fact that we have never stopped to examine them. A powerful practice is to list 3 episodes of your life that you often remember with pain or shame. Then try to see in these episodes a wire of learning or resilience. Perhaps that failure experience made you develop more empathy. Perhaps that difficult relationship has taught to set limits. When you find new meanings, you do not erase the past, but turn it into feature. Another useful practice is to write an alternative version of its history, as if it were a heroic biography. Imagine yourself as the protagonist of an epic journey, in which every lived challenge becomes part of the formation of who you are today. Don't be afraid to overdo it. Describe your overcoming as a great thing, worthy of a soap opera or a movie. This imagination is not a lie. It is mental training to reconfigure the way your brain organizes memories and expectations. Inspiring examples abound. Think of figures like Nelson Mandela, who could have narrated himself as a victim of injustice after 27 years in prison. Instead, he chose the narrative of someone who turned pain into purpose. Or think of artists who, in the face of physical and emotional trauma, chose to turn wounds into art. These people did not change the facts but changed the narrative, and the narrative changed reality. It is important to understand that rewriting your story is not to deny what happened. It is not to say that something painful did not hurt. It is, yes, to choose to give this chapter a different role in the plot of your life. Instead of being the end, it becomes the beginning of a new version of you. And here's a crucial point. Just listening to it now, you already show something rare. Most people live as a passive character within a story that someone has written. You, by devoting time to reflect, are already acting as the author of your narrative. This puts it in a position of power, not the power to control everything, but the power to choose the meaning that each experience will have. In the end, life is less about the facts that happen and more about the stories we tell about them. Ask yourself, what's the story I want you to guide my next few years? If you could write a new chapter today, what title would he have? What emotions would dominate your pages? In the next block, we will take an even more practical step. Explore the power of mental creation. You will find out how to use imagination not as an escape, but as a real tool for shaping your future. Everything that exists in the physical world started first in the invisible. Every bridge, every song, every book, every invention, before it takes shape, existed as an idea in someone's mind. Mental creation is this process of transforming imagination into a conscious construction tool. It's not daydream, it's not fantasy. It is the ability to use the mind as a laboratory, rehearsing future before they happen. The difference between waking up and creating is intended. The loose dream lets the mind wander aimlessly, like clouds that pass. Mental creation, on the other hand, directs this energy. It is like a painter in front of a canvas. Each trace has purpose, each color is chosen with intention. When you learn to practice this, your mind is no longer just spectator and becomes an active architect of your reality. Science supports this practice. Experiments show that when a person imagines performing an action, playing an instrument, lifting weights, playing sports, the same brain circuits are activated as if they were actually performing the activity. That is, the brain does not completely distinguish between imagining and doing. This means that rehearsing mentally is not a waste of time, but real training. A clear example of this is in the sport. Basketball players, gymnasts, corridors, all use visualization to improve performance. They close their eyes and see themselves performing the movement perfectly, feel the body reacting, imagine the crowd, the environment. When they enter the court or track, they already carry the rehearsed experience within themselves, and this increases their chances of hitting. But it's not just athletes who can use this power. You can apply it to your daily life. Imagine, for example, that you need to speak in public. Instead of waiting for fear to take it, you can dedicate a few minutes every day to see yourself climbing the stage, breathing calmly, smiling, conveying confidence. The more it repeats this scene mentally, the more your brain builds the neural network of trust. When the real time comes, your mind will have rehearsed, and the body will respond more naturally. Mental creation is also a powerful tool to cultivate identity. If every day you visualize yourself as a disciplined, creative, and safe, gradually your brain begins to accept this version as real. It is like giving constant instructions to your mind. This is what I am. And the mind, over time, fits this message. A simple exercise is that of morning visualization. When you wake up, before diving into the distractions of the day, close your eyes for a few minutes. Imagine what it would be like to live your day as the person who wants to become. See yourself making decisions with confidence, dealing with unforeseen events calmly, enjoying moments with gratitude. Feel like it was true. This training, repeated daily, puts his brain in the state of those who already live the change. Another inspiring example comes from people who used mental creation as a motor to turn lives. Many artists and entrepreneurs report to have used clear views of their achievements long before they reached them. They did not expect the external environment to validate their dreams. They created the image, the sensation, and the purpose, and the action followed this vision. It is important to remember that mental creation does not replace effort. Imagining without acting is like preparing the earth without ever planting the seed. Power is in the combination, visualizing clearly and then taking concrete steps toward what you imagined. The mind paves the way, but the feet need to walk. Here is a metaphor. Think of your mind like a carpentry workshop. If you let any piece of wood and broken tools come in, the result will be confused. But if you choose good materials, design a design and work carefully, you create something beautiful and lasting. Your thoughts are these materials, your imagination is the project, and your actions are the tools that shape what you dreamed. And you see, just the fact that you are here, now, reflecting on this topic, already shows that you are part of a minority. While most people use imagination just to create negative worries and scenarios, you are choosing to learn to direct this power to something you build. This sets it apart because you are aware that what rehearses in your mind has a direct impact on what you live. Try a quick exercise right now. Close your eyes for a few seconds and imagine a situation you want to live in the coming months. It can be a conversation, an achievement, a trip, a project. See there, as if it were real. Notice the details, the colors, the sounds, the emotions. The more vivid the scene, the stronger the record in your brain. And here is a secret. When you connect emotion to visualization, the impact is even greater. It is not enough to see the scene. It is necessary to feel it. If you imagine a victory, feel pride and joy. If you imagine peace, feel relaxation in the body. This combination of image and emotion is like a code that the brain understands clearly. In the next block, let's dive into something equally essential: emotions as a motor. You will find that it is not enough to think or visualize. You need to learn to turn emotions into fuel that moves your life forward. Imagine for a moment your mind is like a state of the art car. It can be luxurious, powerful, full of resources, but without fuel it does not leave the place. This fuel in your life is the emotions. They make you get out of bed, start a project, persist in a challenge, or give up something halfway. Without emotion, even the brightest plans are only on paper. For a long time, it was believed that emotions were irrational obstacles that needed to be controlled by reason. But today we know that they are communication systems between body and mind, true signs that point to what matters. Anger, for example, indicates that a limit has been exceeded. Fear warns of possible risks. Joy shows ways that deserve to be repeated. No emotion is enemy in itself. The problem is when you let yourself be imprisoned over them instead of using them as a compass. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio has summarized in a masterfully summed up: "We are not machines who think. We are machines they feel they think." This means that behind each decision, as logical as it may seem, there is an emotion driving. A career choice, an important purchase, a relationship. All these movements are impregnated with emotion. A classic example is that of a man who suffered brain injuries that disconnected his emotions from reason. He kept the logical reasoning intact but lost his ability to feel. The result was tragic. It became unable to decide even simple things, such as choosing between two pen colors. Without emotion, reason paralyzes. This proves that we need them as much as we need the air we breathe. Now, if emotions are inevitable, the real question is how to use them in your favor. How to turn fear into prudence, anger at creative energy, sadness in productive reflection, joy in fuel to advance. This is the art of training emotions. The first step is to name them. It sounds too simple, but it works. When you say, "I'm anxious" or "I'm angry," something curious happens. The neocortex is activated, and the emotional intensity decreases. Naming gives contour to what was once just a diffuse whirlwind. The second step is to breathe through emotion. Breathing is the bridge between body and mind. When you inspire deeply and slow air, send to the nervous system the message you can relax. The heart slows down, muscle tension decreases, and gradually emotion loses the strength of avalanche. The third step is to redirect emotional energy. Emotions are movement. The word emotion comes from the Latin emovere, which means move out. If you try to choke it, it accumulates. But it channels itself, it transforms itself. Use anger into a race. Turn sadness into writing. Take anxiety to art or organization. It is not about eliminating emotion, but of converting it into creative action. An inspiring example is from a young woman who survived a personal tragedy. Instead of sinking into pain, he decided to channel his anger and sadness in a social movement that today helps thousands of people. This shows that intense emotions, when well targeted, can become engines of collective transformation. The fourth step is to cultivate expansive emotions: gratitude, compassion, enthusiasm, hope. They all have a multiplier effect. Research shows that people who maintain a gratitude diary, recording small things for which they feel grateful every day, have lower levels of anxiety and higher welfare. Practice does not eliminate problems, but changes the way you face them. And here is something for you to reflect deeply. Just by listening and absorbing this content so far, you already demonstrate a rare posture. Most people allow emotions to lead life as wild horses, without brake and without direction. You, by investing time to learn to deal with them, is already among the few who chose to hold back the reins. This puts it in a position to create a conscious life, rather than just reacting to the emotional ups and downs. Now allow yourself to imagine your emotions as powerful horses. Loose, they run in random directions, spending purposeless energy. But when you learn to lead them, they become their strength to gallop towards where you want. It is not about tame, even silence, but about guiding firmly. A simple exercise to train this is that of conscious transformation. Next time you feel irritation, instead of discounting someone, close your eyes for a moment and say yourself, "This energy can be used in another way." Then direct it to a productive task, a physical activity, or even a simple creative act like writing. Gradually, your brain learns to associate intense emotions with constructive exits. Another powerful exercise is that of daily micro-observation. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what emotion predominated today? What did she try to show me? This practice of self-analysis, repeated every day, creates an emotional map that helps to recognize standards. And when you recognize, you gain freedom to choose from. Examples of transformation abound. Think of people like Malala, who could have hidden after facing violence but turned fear into courage to defend girls' education around the world. Or in someone who lives with physical limitations and chooses to transform frustration into motivation to inspire crowds. These stories are reminders of what emotions, when welcomed and redirected, are no longer bales and become motor. And here is the point that closes this block. Their emotions are not obstacles. They are their greatest allies. They are the gasoline that moves your life. The secret is not to avoid feeling, but learning to feel better. In the next block, we will explore an essential theme: how to turn thoughts into inspired action. Because it is not enough to feel and imagine, it is necessary to act. You will learn to differentiate impulsive action from conscious action, and how to turn intention into reality. So far, you have traveled a journey of consciousness. You have found how the mind works, how the body keeps memories, how time can be allied, how attention shapes its reality, how to meditate soothe internal waters, how to rewrite narratives, changes destinations, and how emotions can become fuel. But all this would be incomplete if it did not culminate at a decisive point: the action. Thinking, Feeling and visualizing are fundamental steps, but life really transforms itself when you translate intention in motion. It is at this moment that the invisible becomes visible, that the seed springs from the earth, that the dream is no longer just a dream. But there is a crucial difference between acting on impulse and acting with consciousness. Impulsive action is born of anxiety, fear, or the need to prove something. It's like throwing a blind arrow just to get rid of the weight of the bow. Conscious action is the result of alignment. It arises when your mind, emotions, and your body walk together toward the same purpose. It's like shooting the arrow after it is calmly, clearly, and confidently that the target is before you. And here is a powerful detail. Conscious actions need not be grandiose to impact. They are often small, repeated gestures that change the course of a life. A daily walk, 10 minutes of meditation, write 3 lines of gratitude, turn off the phone for half an hour to be present with someone. These acts seem insignificant but accumulated over time. They build extraordinary results. An inspiring example is that of a writer who decided to book only 15 minutes a day to write, even in the chaos of the routine. At first it looked little, but months later, she had a complete book in her hands. It was not the great action that made the difference, but the constancy of the small actions. Another example is in the health area. A woman who spent years trying to change eating habits has decided to start simply by adding an extra glass of water a day. This change seemed minimal but created domino effect, increased the energy, improved the skin, encouraged light exercises. In a year, his life had turned completely. The secret is to start small, but start. The mind often sabots saying, "If I can't do everything, better do nothing." This is a trap. The real way is to take the first step, albeit modest. Because one step takes to another, and when you realize, it has already traveled a distance that seemed impossible at the beginning. This is where the importance of consistency comes in. Inspiration lights the flame, but it is the discipline that keeps the fire lit. When you learn to act even on days when you don't feel like it, it begins to differentiate itself from the majority. Because most expect the motivation to arrive. You don't. You act because you know that each action is a brick placed in the construction of life you want to live. And here is a reflection that needs to be told. Just because it came to the end of this script, you have proved something rare. While many would abandon in the middle, you remained, heard, reflected, and absorbed. This puts it among the few who not only want change but are willing to devote real time to it. This commitment is already a form of action. Now, I want to talk directly to you, personal and welcoming. If this content has touched you in any way, I want to invite you to keep walking with me. This channel is not just made of loose words or ideas. It is a space of collective construction, a place where each person who enters helps keep the flame of transformation alive. Subscribe here on the channel. We are growing step by step, and each inscription strengthens this community of women who have decided to wake up to a new way of living. But I don't want you to participate just as a spectator. I want you to share your voice. Leave your experience in the comments. What was the point of this script that moved you the most? There was a memory, a reflection, an idea that lit something different within you. By dividing your story, you not only solidifies your process, but inspire other people who may be going along the same way. And if this video brought clarity or hope to you, share it with someone you love. We never know how much a word can be the light that someone else needs to hear. You can be the link that leads to transformation to someone's life. Before closing, I want to reinforce, you are different. Not because he heard beautiful words, but because he remained to the end. This means that you are willing to invest in yourself, and this is the step that most never take. You have already left the dough that lives in the automatic, and are putting themselves among those who consciously choose to evolve. May this be just the beginning of a new story. May every thought, every emotion, and every little action align to create the life you deserve to live. And let you never forget, power was already within you all the time.